The Cradle News Roundup coming to you live. My name is Esteban Carrillo. I'm the news editor for The Cradle, and as usual, I'm joined by my colleagues, content creator and writer for The Cradle, Karim Shami, and writer for The Cradle and host for The Cradle Arabic podcast, Dr. Mohammed Hassan Suaidan. I hope you guys are doing well. We have many things to discuss. Never a lack for topics here at the podcast. But before we start, as usual, everyone, as soon as you arrive, just hit that like button. Make sure if you haven't to subscribe to our channel, check out our memberships, check out our Patreon, where you can become also a direct supporter of The Cradle, and check out in our website, in our main page, our merch. You can buy The Cradle merch. It's pretty awesome stuff. Go and get it. Well, as today as we start is a few hours after the Israeli Navy seized the global Sumud Flotilla, dozens of ships, hundreds of activists. I haven't seen an update yet. From what I saw a couple of hours ago was that at least one ship was still on the way to Gaza. Nevertheless, I do not expect them to reach the coast. You know, the Israeli Navy is really determined to seize all of these ships. The prisoners, the activists who have been, essentially kidnapped. This is a high seas kidnapping because Israel does not have the authority to be seizing ships in international waters. But then again, they don't have the authority to commit a genocide, and still they do it. Well, we're seeing images of the seizure of these, Zionist pirates seizing all of these ships. The activists are going to be processed at one of Israel's most infamous prisons. Anybody who rejects deportation or, I guess, doesn't play along is going to be treated as a terrorist. This is what Itamar Ben-Gvir has said. Protests have broken out worldwide after from last night. As soon as news hit that Israel was seizing the boats, you saw protests in Italy, in several cities in Italy, in several cities in Spain, in France, in Turkey, in some areas, I think in Tunisia as well. I don't know, in Morocco, maybe a few, although I think Morocco is having its own, protests that maybe we can talk about later. Latin America as well. I just want to hear you guys' thoughts about what's next for this movement in particular.
Yeah, Esteban, I remember like months ago when the first flotilla moved towards Gaza, we said one flotilla will do nothing, but maybe when countries and when corporations start to send more than one flotilla, as what happened. What is still happening now, I think this will create more pressure on Israel. But of course, that doesn't mean the war will stop. And of course, I think Israel is handling the flotillas in this way because there's many foreigners on this flotilla. I guess if there were Arabs, there will be a different story as they did before. I think what Italy did is also a disgrace because they tried their best to take everything from the flotilla and to stop the flotillas from entering Israeli waters and Palestinian waters, of course. That's why we saw many even protests in Italy because the Italian Navy tried to stop these efforts. And we'll see if this continues. I think also Israel will escalate. Till now, they didn't sink or bomb the flotillas. They tried to bomb them when they were near Tunisia, and nobody knew what happened in Tunisia. But later on, as we discussed here also at the Cradle, that Barak, who is the head of the U.S. delegation to Syria and Lebanon, he revealed that he revealed that Israel did it. We'll see, maybe there will be more escalation from Israel if this continues, because I think this creates pressure for them. And of course, there's many people, famous people and influencers are on these flotillas. Till now, we didn't see an Arab flotilla or Muslim flotilla, unfortunately. Till now, they are mostly from Europe. We'll see what this will lead to. What do you think, Swaidan?
No, I think that, the flotilla incidents all prove what we all know, what we all already know, that Israel is a terrorist entity. So I really doubt that anyone around the world has been surprised of what happened. But I was asking myself, why is Israel doing so? I mean, the whole idea of the flotilla is symbolic, because these flotillas can't have a huge amount of food that can satisfy all the people in Gaza. So why not just let this small amount to reach Gaza? But well, I found two main answers. Number one, because yes, Israel is committing genocide and famine inside of Gaza, so no one is allowed to eat there. And number two, if one ship reaches the coasts of Gaza, then you will see the other day hundreds and hundreds of ships trying to reach there, because they will all feel that there is hope that they can achieve something inside of Gaza. So what Israel is really doing, it is killing also the hope inside of Gaza, the hope sent to the Gazan people from all over the world, from wherever you come. It's not about being a Muslim, it's not about being an Arab, it's not about believing in the Palestinian case. As long as you have some humanity in yourself, as long as you refuse genocide, you refuse famine, as long as you want to help the people from a humanitarian perspective, then you will find Israel on the other side. So now I think what happened with the flotillas also proves that the battle isn't between Palestinians and Israelis. It's not between Arabs and Israelis. It's between humanity and inhumanity. And I think that's the main thing that drives Israel to do what it did.
No, I completely agree with you. I think this is much more about a psychological warfare than, like as you said, to really drive the point to the Palestinians trapped in Gaza that there's no one coming to save them. That anybody who tries is just going to be, immediately deported, or maybe even worse, because we know that about 15 years ago, Israel did actually kill a bunch of activists that were trying to break the blockade in Gaza. For everyone who doesn't know, Gaza has been under blockade for nearly 20 years now. At this point, as I said, you saw very big protests erupt right after this happened. There's videos of Turkish ships, of vessels, like small vessels that set off on their own this morning. I don't know how far that's going to reach. I feel like, this was not really a coordinated event. It was more of a, let's do something. Let's at least try to mobilize. But more likely than not, the Turkish army is the one, the Turkish Navy is the one that is going to put a stop to this, to grab them. Like Karim said, when Italy, when Spain, when Turkey themselves sent these ships to accompany the flotilla, the idea initially was like, well, wow, like nations are finally stepping up. They are helping the protecting the flotilla. But it was very quick that then they confirmed, like, no, we're not here to protect anyone. We're not here to prevent any attacks. We are here to try to convince them to give us the aid, and then we will give it to the Israeli army, which, of course, flotilla organizers have said that's simply not going to happen. Go ahead.
And you know that also, why does most of the flotillas come from the Western community? I think there is an answer for that, because if you see how well the Western community has been taught in the last decades, and how the Arab community has been taught in the last decades, you can understand the answers. Because when the Western community wanted to launch so many wars in our region, well, it used the idea of human rights and protecting people and everything. So it convinced its people in the idea of protecting human rights and defending these human rights, even if the cost was war. So today, the people are defending what their governments taught them to defend. But previously, their governments used to use these titles to conduct wars in the region. Now it's on the other side. As for the Arab people, it's different, because the Arab people has been taught in the last decades to be controlled by their governments, to not have any sort of independence or freedom. In the Gulf countries, you can't even elect. You don't have the right to elect who is your leader. So this is the main difference. You have one country that taught its people about the human rights because it needed to do so, to use this as a reason to conduct wars, and you have the Arab world who is paralyzed because the systems and the regimes paralyzed them. That's why you can see that the most active communities are the Western communities, not the Arab or Islamic ones.
Yeah, 100%. And also in the United States, that's why everybody is like freaking about Israel, because they taught them freedom, and now they realize there's freedom in everything except criticizing Israel.
Sorry, the U.S. paid billions and billions of dollars to let the people in the region perceive Israel, not in the region, in the world, to perceive Israel as the number one democratic state. If you see the articles from year 2000 till 2010, you can find hundreds of articles speaking about how Israel is the only democratic state living in the region, where you have other monarchies who are undemocratic and unliberal. So they wanted to convince the Western community that's why we support Israel, because we need to protect democracy, and Israel is the only democratic state there. Now, what happened, I think, it just the US and the West lost hundreds of billions of dollars that were paid in marketing Israel as a democratic state.
Exactly, and the narrative is still there. Yani, you see Netanyahu, whenever he's speaking English or communicating with any American, he always clarifies that Israel is the only democratic state, and this is a war between democracy and the barbarians. I don't know.
Between
What,
civilization and barbarism.
yeah. So that's still embedded in their narrative.
I mean, one thing actually, let me quickly in the comments, I've seen people saying that there are Arabs on those vessels. There's Malaysians, there's Turks, there's Lebanese. There's like, I think this is like in relation to what you said, Karim, that there's no Muslim flotilla, there's no Arab flotilla. I think what you meant, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that none of the Muslim or Arab states are the ones that have organized the flotilla, the governments.
Yeah.
The people, of course, like whenever you hear us say anything about I don't know, Tunisia, Turkey, whatever. We're not talking about the people. We're talking about the governments. We're talking about the states. So yeah, I think this is very interesting what you said, Mohammed, that kind of like this money really has gone down the drain, the propaganda, and that this is why you had Netanyahu at the last week when he was meeting with all of the influencers, and he said the eighth front that Israel is fighting is on social media, and we need to take control of TikTok, which we have now. Larry Ellison controls TikTok. The biggest donor to the Israeli army is in control of the US algorithm for TikTok. He said, we got to go to X because Elon Musk is a friend. And Elon Musk is going to help us out. They already got Meta. Meta is completely theirs. So this is the... a few weeks ago, I remember that here in the podcast, we were having a discussion. And I was saying, like, what Israel is doing, or the way that they're doing it, the way they're conducting themselves, and like like mocking the Palestinians and doing this thing with the flotilla, everything that they're doing, it's an attempt to get people to hate them. Like this is a concerted effort for the Western world and everyone else to be like, oh my God, like these people are really despicable. I'm gonna hate them, and this quickly devolves into anti-Semitism. And the Israelis the Israeli government in particular feeds off of that, because then it works into their narrative. Look what happened this morning in Manchester. Like a few hours after the Sumud flotilla gets taken, there's a terror attack. There's a terror attack in a synagogue on Yom Kippur. Germany yesterday was talking about dismantling a Hamas cell that was going to start attacking Jewish like synagogues, like institutions, etc. I mean, I don't know about you guys. It's a bit suspicious. Suspicious.
Just about the picture of Netanyahu with the TikTokers and the influencers. The interesting thing is that he chose to meet with the TikTokers and the influencers, the American ones, the ones that have influence inside of the US, and this reveals that it's not only about Israel fighting the global narrative. It's about Israel fighting the narrative inside the US itself. Because today you can find that even inside the US, which is not only the number one ally, it's more than that for Israel. It's the one that the number one superpower responsible for everything happening in the region, from Gaza to Lebanon to all the region. But when you see that Netanyahu is interested in sitting with influencers and American influencers, you can find to what limit Israel can't control the narrative in the US itself. How much Israel is worried about the future of the generations inside of the US. How much will this generation be effective in the elections in a couple of years later?
Yes.
So it was interesting to see him really interested in meeting American influencers and giving them part of his time.
Yes.
Kind of like a priority, right? It really seemed to be a priority. What were you going to say, Karim?
Yeah, I was going to say that usually I follow Hebrew media, and something caught my attention when you talk about that what's happening is somehow suspicious in Europe. There was a study that was like published in a Hebrew news outlet. I forgot which one, but now I remembered it. They said that if we increase Islamophobia in the West, by default, we will gain like 20% of their empathy. So I think that's what Israel is trying to do now. They want to play the Islamophobia card. Maybe you will see like maybe bombing here and there. Maybe you will see some
False flags is what
operations.
you're saying.
Yeah, false flags, and they will put it that a guy named Muhammad or Ali or whatever did it. So
The
this
Quran
might,
was fine on the scene.
yeah, because I think this is the last thing that they can do. They literally lost the narrative, especially for the younger generation.
They're
Because
desperate for that. They're desperate, and
Yeah,
like there's a few reports. Karim, sorry to cut you off,
Yeah,
but
no
just
problem.
because I forget before I forget. Responsible Statecraft has had a few reports over the last week that are very interesting. Like one of them was like they uncovered that Israel is paying up to $7,000 per post to these influencers to whitewash the genocide in Gaza, to speak well about Israel. They're investing millions of dollars into making ChatGPT more Israel friendly. They are flooding the internet. I think we talked about this on Monday actually, but just let me quickly recap. They're flooding the internet with fake news or just the Israeli narrative of things to make sure that when you browse something on AI, that it will gather the information and it will take a more pro-Israel stance. They are they got control of TikTok, all of the social media apps. It's really this attempt, and because this week the New York Times published a poll. It was New York Times something else poll that said 40% of the voters of U.S. voters say they do not want their country to continue giving military aid to Israel. And when asked whether Israel is committing crimes against civilians, is deliberately targeting civilians, I have the image here with the numbers. Because I don't want to give you guys like incorrect information. But it was a complete turnaround from December 2023. Like in December 2023, they asked that same question. Here it is. I have it here. In December 2023, when asked, do you think Israel is intentionally or unintentionally killing civilians, 22% said intentionally. Now, 40% say intentionally. And the ones who say unintentionally on December 2023, it was 21%. Today is 16%. The numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. The popularity, Israel's popularity is in the toilet.
Yeah, not only that, in the US, you have some polls that show that the young generations believe that the whole land of Palestine should be handled to Hamas. So, and I think this is around 30% of Harvard poll. So this opinion isn't about a two-state solution or something like that. It's about giving the whole Palestinian land to Hamas, meaning that there is no more Israel. So yeah, as long as the war is continuing, as long as you can find these opinions more and more, and that's what's worrying Benjamin Netanyahu. I think it's far behind us to be able to control the narrative again. I think what's happened has happened, and now Israel is paying the price of all the crimes it did, not only in Gaza but in the whole region.
Yeah, and especially when after his meeting with Trump last week, Netanyahu gave an interview in Hebrew, and he said that I came here and what I did with President Trump is very important because now we flipped everything. Now everybody will blame Hamas because if they don't accept our deal. And then he proceeded and sat with the influencers, but globally and the narrative online and in social media was not like that. That means that they really lost this sector. Yeah, and previously when Israel and the United States, they say anything, you will see every news outlet focusing on it and blaming the other party that didn't accept. But I think this is the first time they did a huge PR move, and Trump said that the most historical important thing will be done tomorrow, and then you will see there is no hype like before. And this shows us that they really lost the narrative, especially I said with young people. Why? Because all people are used to mainstream media. Now, young people, nobody watches CNN, BBC, and these stuff. They might only watch them for documentaries, but they will
retirement
not go
homes,
there. Yeah. So the narrative is being done on social media from young people from Palestine and the Arab world to Western young people, and this is very effective.
You know what Netanyahu doesn't understand? He doesn't understand that the matter for, well, most of the people isn't political. I mean, most of the communities and the people around the world doesn't care about the Palestinian case as a case. They don't care who rules Gaza. They don't care about who rules Israel, the two-state solution. These people are demonstrating against Israel from only a humanitarian perspective. So whatever you do politically, if you go to and sit with Trump and suggest a plan, people don't care about what you are doing. They care about how you are acting in Gaza to achieve your goals. Many people in the streets, maybe they are aligned with Israel's goals, but they are against how Israel is achieving it. That's what Netanyahu isn't understanding. It's not about the political situation of everything in the region. It's about how you are acting and what this reflects about your true ideology. Especially that, well, historically we were always in West Asia, we were always saying that Israel is a terrorist state, but well, they had the control over the media, so we had so much trouble to convince other communities about
No,
this
not only
fact.
that, our voices didn't reach even. Yeah.
Exactly. So we had trouble in convincing all communities. Now you have all of the communities around the world, from the smallest child to the biggest adult. They know the truth, and they are thinking about it from only a humanitarian perspective. And that's what Netanyahu isn't understanding. He's always searching for a solution or a narrative from a political side, and he is not addressing the humanitarian situation because he can't address it. He doesn't have anything to say.
Because he doesn't think it's a humanitarian crisis. He did
Yes.
genuinely. There's no concern there. There's zero concern. Let me quickly thank Pink Rose and Javier Gatica for their super chats. Thank you so much. Non Biryani asks, "Where are the likes?" And I ask the same thing. I second that opinion. Where are the likes, people? I know you miss Sima. I know you miss Charmin. They will be back soon enough. Don't worry. Show us some love in any case. There's something that is happening, in particular with the United States, right? And sometimes I feel like I wish we could give stop talking so much about the U.S., but unfortunately they are a huge the center of destabilization, right? And as you said, Mohammed, and now with what they're doing in Gaza, the veil has come off, right? Like 20 years ago, you could have said Israel's a terrorist state. You would have been like, oh, just because you're, I don't know, an Arab and you hate the West, you hate the way of life. That was the rhetoric. Now it's like, kind of, yes, it is. It is a terrorist state. The U.S. I wanna get your guys' opinion about what happened this week in Washington when Pete Hegseth gathered about 800 of his generals for an event that was described as a political rally. This is what attendees said. This was a political rally in which, among other things, he really went against like woke culture and like no more long hair, like meaningless stuff, in my view, meaningless stuff. The important thing that he said was, we are no longer gonna adhere to stupid rules of engagement, essentially saying, you go out there and you commit war crimes, we got your back, we don't care. Marco Rubio, a few weeks ago, he was in Ecuador and he was saying, I don't care what the UN has to say. The U.S. State Secretary saying, I don't care what the UN has to say. Pete Hegseth this week, he said that. He said, essentially, we're lifting the restraints, take, extraordinary force against our enemies. And if you're not okay with that, maybe you should resign. That was his suggestion. And this is already the Pentagon, the War Department, has been kind of cleansed a bit, of like the democratic influence or the liberal elements, whatever they want to call it. He has been removing people, even people who would were not fawning over Charlie Kirk after he got killed. They were getting caught, if they had any comment that had anything bad to say about this man. And then Donald Trump takes the stage and he says the enemy is from within. He says, the enemy is from within. We need to use our cities as the training ground for future military operations. And again, Hegseth's word, if you're not okay with that, maybe you should resign. So this is, I don't know how much clearer it can be that the United States at this point, it's going to go to war against anyone who doesn't stand on their side. We have seen the ships going to Qatar, the tanker planes, the squadrons, At the same time, well, I don't want to diverge too much into that yet, but yeah, I want to get your opinion about Hexet and Trump's statements this week, which happened with Netanyahu still in the U.S., by the way.
I have two main points. The first is about the one of the most important American narratives in the last couple of years was that the U.S. and the whole West is protecting the rules-based order. I think what happened in that meeting that the Americans buried the rules-based order, and they just told the whole world that we don't believe in the rules-based order. We will have our own order around the world. So don't speak with us about United Nations, international law, international humanitarian law, and everything, and human rights and everything. Now we have our own order. So if any American diplomat, politician, journalist just speaks with you about international organizations, international based order, you can hold Trump and Hexet's speeches and let him hear it, and then he'll have to answer you. Number two, regarding the civil-military relations, because when you speak out international relations, one of the most important domains is civil-military relations, the relation between the army and the political side. And they always say that theories and history always says that the most important thing in any state is to try to keep the army independent as much as you can. The army can't go and be part of the internal politics because internal politics change and leaders change. So if it is with one party, then when this party loses, then the army will have problems with the new leader. So you should always protect the army internally, and you protect it by giving it independence. What happened in that meeting is that Trump wanted to tell the Democrats that the army is with me. The army is against the liberals and against the liberal views, against the woke culture, against everything the liberals are trying to spread in the US and outside the US. And that's very dangerous because when you have the army along one side and against the other, then this may be one of the points where, or one of the signs that there is truly a problem inside the country, and this may lead to several troubles. And the final point is regarding. I was thinking when Trump was speaking, and I think Blinken also before said it during Biden's administration that we really don't care about human rights as long as any country's leader is ready to be by our side. We are willing to neglect every human right violation he conducts. So now Trump is repeating it. But I was thinking that when is the point where empires start to just decline? It's when they overstretch. Mm-hmm. I think what the US is doing today, and also what Israel is doing today, they are overstretching because you can't just be an enemy to everyone. That no one can. Even the biggest empire can't. Now the US is saying, I'm against everyone, even the European countries. I'm against you. Economically, I'm against you. I don't care if you go to war with Russia. I don't care about your situation in our region. I don't care about Qatar. I don't care about the Arab allies. I don't care about anyone in Asia, in Africa. I don't care about anyone. I'm only going to fight everyone that fights me, and that's overstretching. So the point where empires start to collapse is when they overstretch. And I think now the US and Israel are moving towards overstretching.
They're completely. Karim, before I let you go on, a couple of things. One, thank you so much, Gulnara Marchis, for their super chat. Thank you so very much. There's a couple of comments here that I just want to highlight before they move on. Muata said, this reminded someone of Hitler speaking to his generals in 1935. No longer a nod to the Weimar Republic, loyalty only to the Führer. And then the next comment, similar view, just a different way of stating it, is starting to feel like the U.S., to feel in the U.S. like the famous scene in Scarface when he tries to take down his enemies while in a coke-filled haze. And it doesn't end well for Mr. Scarface. No, it does not. Karim, what do you think about this speech? And just one final thing I want to add. This speech comes one day after the Wall Street Journal reports that the Pentagon ordered weapons manufacturers to double or even quadruple missile production. So, all signs point to more war. Now, please, Karim, go ahead.
Yeah, the United States is a very violent state. And I think they reached a point that if they didn't find a war outside their borders, they will fight each other. It's insane. And as you mentioned, Trump is now playing playing as if he's like the ultimate dictator for the United States. But in their mind and how they are fed propaganda, they don't realize that they have now a dictator. And it's so funny now if you compare, for instance, the president of China, Xi, and the president of the United States, how this one is a democratic state and the other one is like a butcher and a violent dictator. That's very weird, and everybody is seeing that exactly. Also, the Europeans now they don't like the Americans. It's not like before, and it's evidence in many things, not only in politics. Yani, for instance, 2 days ago there was like a big championship in golf between Europe and the United States. And the Europeans said that we will never step into the United States again. They throw at them many things, and they humiliated them, and they and they cursed them just because they won the American team. So this is starting to irritate many people, and it's really a very violent state in politics, in sport, of course, in wars. Without even them shooting a bullet, we know that only their sanctions kill around 500,000 people yearly. That's without even fighting. So I think the United States is a very dangerous country. It was only dangerous, unfortunately, for West Asia and some places. Now it's dangerous for for the whole world.
It's dangerous in a more direct way, right? Because the U.S. interference, U.S. meddling has always been there in different forms. But now it's like like Mohammed said, we are going to war against everyone. We are the enemy of everyone right now. I mean, look at what's happening in Latin America. I don't know how closely you guys follow it, but it's getting militarized. It's getting, it's getting really bad, honestly. Like in my view, it's West Asia 2.0. It's
You-
like
you
South
know-
America is about to become that. Yeah, I don't know. Where you guys?
Also, there's a very good comparison to make here between Netanyahu and Trump. The two believe that they are more than leaders. They believe that they are the ultimate kings of their countries, and that's very dangerous. Because Netanyahu believes that he is a spiritual leader and he is the ultimate king that needs to achieve the things for Israel that no one achieved. On the other side, Trump also believes that he is a spiritual leader and an ultimate king that wants to achieve for the Yas that no one has achieved before. And that's the main driver of overstretching. When you believe that you have capabilities that you don't have. So that's when you go towards overstretching, and that's when the decline of empires start.
Indeed. Indeed. It's the imperial boomerang is what we're witnessing. It's particular when you talk about, the situation inside the U.S., which is dire to say the least, with ICE, with, the militarization of several cities, with the threats. Yesterday, there was footage of ICE agents rappelling down a Black Hawk helicopter in Chicago. I don't know, I don't know how anybody can justify this, but yet they do. And it's everything that they did outside is coming back to them, right? It's coming back to haunt them. And more than coming back on its own, it's being brought back. It's being brought back by Trump, who, like you said very well, Mohammed, sees himself as emperor, right? Emperor Trump, Emperor Netanyahu. And I want to get your guys' thoughts now on the deal with Qatar, because I don't know, Karim, do you have the picture of Trump and Netanyahu at the White House during the phone call, the one in black and white?
I think that was the most expensive phone call.
That picture
Nobody
kills
can
me. That
convince
picture
me
kills me
that-
for different reasons. But until Karim finds it, just a quick overview. So Netanyahu meets with Trump, right? And before they announced this colonial plan to give Gaza to Tony Blair, essentially, Netanyahu calls Qatar to apologize for the attack in Doha. And just a day later, Trump announces, the White House announced that Trump has signed an order to make Qatar an even more, I forget the name, but more strategic partner, like essentially giving them a joint defense agreement, like kind of like a NATO Article 5 for Qatar, and says if Qatar gets attacked by anyone, the U.S. will step in. Very convenient that it happens after the attack by Israel, right? And at the same time, they're heavily militarizing Al Udeid. They're sending a lot of tanker planes, not just the U.S. but also the U.K. Well, yeah, this is the picture. I mean, honestly, what kills me about this picture is the phone on Trump's lap, like that he's holding the phone for Netanyahu. That's just everything. What do you guys think that's coming? That needs the U.S. to give Qatar this assurance, and also, all of these ships in Abu Dhabi.
I think it's only because they were humiliated in front of their people, and their narrative that they are, the narrative, it's not only about Qatar, the narrative that the the Gulf kings or leaders did with, alongside with the United States, that the United States is our ally because it protects us. The United States, we have to like step aside from anything that's happening in the region and concerning Palestine and other stuff, because we have the United States and it will protect us. This, I think, was shattered the moment Qatar was bombed. And I think not only Qatar, I think the United States, I think they acknowledge this and they should reestablish their connections to reassure the Gulf nations and their leaders that, okay, we are still here to protect you. That's what I think. Or there's another thing. Maybe they also paid Trump like $1 trillion so they can phone Netanyahu, and they asked for an apology. The funny thing
That
that
he's reading the apology.
he's reading, it was not an apology. That's the funny part. He didn't apologize. He said that he's sorry that a Qatari was
Killed?
yeah, they killed was killed. They didn't. He didn't apologize. He said we didn't bomb Qatar. We bombed terrorists in Qatar, meaning that he's giving himself like legitimacy of what he did. So that's what happened. But also, yeah, Stepan, the the phone is on his lap is really funny.
It's hilarious. It's so bad. It's really so bad. Do you agree with Karim? I feel like Karim has an interesting perspective on this, like a
You know,
reassurance.
I think that the phone on the lap they wanted it to be that way because it shows that Trump is controlling. I think that Trump asked for the picture to be taken in that way. It sends a message that he is the one controlling and he is the one that forced Netanyahu to do the call. But I'm sorry to say that, but I think it's too stupid to believe that the US is gonna defend not Qatar, any of its allies around the world. Today, there is the Act 5 inside the NATO agreement. If Poland is attacked by any country, by Russia, will the US go towards war with Russia? I really doubt it. I don't think that the US is willing to go to a war with anyone for another country's interests. It's willing to fight everyone for its own interests, but not for another, not to protect another country. How about Qatar, a very small country in the region, and it doesn't have this political weight and interest for the US. So why will the US go and defend it? And against who? Against Israel? That's, I think it's too naive to think that. It's all a gesture, and it's only a message to the Arab people mainly, not to the Arab leaders, because the Arab leaders have already gave their countries to the West, gave their countries to the US. I think it's a message to the Arab people that the US cares about you and the US wants to protect you and we are going to do whatever you need. But we all know that, of course, the US won't defend anyone, number one. Number two, of course, the US won't have problems with Israel. And number three, let's all keep in mind what's happening in all the region is mainly because of the US. We spoke before that. Most of the weapons, 80% of the defensive weapons Israel are using are American. 20% only are Israelis. So if you remove the 80%, Israel won't be protected. Everyone responsible, or the main actor responsible for everything, for killing the children, for killing the adults, for destroying the countries, for destroying the regimes, for destroying our land, for Israel occupying our lands. This is all mainly the US, mainly America. So all the other gestures doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and if their defense is 80% coming from the United States, their offense is 100% from the United States.
Yeah.
All their air force is made in USA, of course, and their fighters are trained in the United States. So That's it. Yeah, I totally agree with you. But yeah, when you talk to a person from the Gulf, and for instance, I had a friend from Kuwait. This happened like 10 years ago. They are convinced, and he said, "My country and me, I'm willing to do anything for the Americans because they protect us against Saddam Hussein." So there is that mentality in the Gulf nations, and I don't think. As you mentioned, the Arab leaders, yani, they know what to do. I think they are selected the moment they are born. You know, yani, you have an Amir or a king. He chooses his son. He raises him how to bend the knee and how to say okay to the Americans. They are born and taught this. And for instance, we saw what's happening in Gaza and how the Gulf are being humiliated and everything. Until now, they didn't do anything. All what they did is also shows us that they are still aligned fully with the West and with Israel. For instance, yesterday, Saudi Arabia bombed Saada. They killed a small Yemeni girl in north of Yemen. 10 days ago, they downed a missile that was heading towards Israel. And I think 2 days ago also they made a deal, a very weird deal, that Saudi Arabia bought EA Sports and they paid $55 billion. And Kushner, who is a Zionist Jew, was yani, the conductor of the deal and the head of the deal. So I don't think Saudi Arabia needs EA Games. I don't think Saudi Arabia can manage a gaming company because they don't have such coders, they don't have such companies. And for instance, if Japan bought EA Sports, you understand, okay, they have this industry. There's no such industry in Saudi Arabia. And this deal is, I think, purely whitewashing money to Trump and his cabinet, especially Kushner, because this is not the first time they struck a deal with Kushner. Kushner is not like that businessman. You have to follow and make deals with him. He became maybe a billionaire now thanks to Saudi Arabia, not the other way around.
The Saudis love Kushner. They love their Kushner. Before we move on, I want to ask you guys about Syria, but just I want to remind quickly people, in particular about this deal with Qatar and the U.S. Who was it that helped Qatar when they were being sanctioned by Saudi Arabia and the UAE and almost invaded at one point? Who was the country that was actually sending aid to Qatar? Karim, do you remember?
Iran, yeah, of course.
It was Iran. It was Iran indeed. And yet, well, how the world turns in any case. There's something interesting happening now in northern Syria. Well, we all saw our friend Julani at the UN giving a speech that no one remembers, giving he came and he went. The only thing that mattered about his trip was the fact that, look, Al-Qaeda is back in New York. He met with a bunch of Jewish leaders as well. But now, it seems that the Kurds, the Syrian Democratic Forces, and the administration of the autonomous administration of North and Eastern Syria is really not down with joining Damascus. They are really not getting, the assurances that to join forces with Damascus. A couple of days ago, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights came out with a report saying that Turkish-backed militias within the Syrian army, the diversity-loving Syrian army, are being given orders to prepare for attacks against the SDF, again in Tishrin Dam, which is in the north, where heavy clashes happened earlier this year, and somewhere else. I don't have the article right here. And for the other hand, Erdogan yesterday said, we will not allow Syria to be fragmented and that we will intervene. Wait, let me find the actual what he said. He threatened the Kurds if integration with Damascus fails. So now you have, what does he say? Turkey's policies positions are clear. Turkey will not allow a deja vu to take place in Syria. That's what Erdogan said. What have you guys heard? What do you guys think about what's happening between the Kurds and the Syrian government?
I just have before about the Kurds. When I saw the Syrian interim president Ahmed al-Shara in the United Nations, the first thing I thought is that there really is no limit to American pragmatism. You can get a terrorist designated person to speak in New York in the United Nations just because you align with the US. That's how much the American pragmatism has reached. There's no limit to it. And that's what all the people should know, that if the US finds interest in just selling you and killing you and doing whatever it wants to you, the American pragmatism has no limit. It can do whatever it wants. So this is on one side. And regarding Erdogan, it's also important to remind people that one of the things that Erdogan knows how to do most is to send threats. I think one of the highest voices against Israel since 2023 till now is Erdogan, but he hasn't done anything, and that proves a point that not only the Arab world but also the Islamic world, and Turkey being part of it, is too much influenced by the American politics, by the American foreign policy, and that's important to think about in Syria, because when we are convinced that yes, the Americans have a lot of influence over the Turkish foreign policy, then there is limits to how much Turkey can act inside of Syria. Well, Kurds at the end of the day are allies with the US and with Israel inside of Syria, and I think that's the main thing that delays any Turkish or Syrian attack on the Kurds. So the important thing to concentrate on is the change in the Kurdish-American relations. Because when this relation changes, it is the time where Turkey and Syria may act. As long as the Kurds and the US are on very good relations, I think that there are some boundaries that Turkey cannot cross.
What do you think, Karim?
First, I think all this started after Erdogan met Trump in the White House, and of course they discussed this because the Kurdish situation is very, it's not easy and it's complicated. I just want to simplify it for our viewers. So, for the past 14 years, the United States and Israel played the Kurdish part against the Syrian government, and they pressured them from the east, and where the Kurdish people are is where the Syrian oil is and where they cultivate their crops. So
the wheat
and other stuff, yeah. And there's water, and the main river passes there. So it was a very important area that the United States put its hands and foot there since 2014, and they had bases. And of course, they are allies with the Iraqi Kurdistan in the north of Iraq, and they established a stronghold there alongside with SDF, which is the democratic forces that was created by the Americans in 2014, and it has Kurdish fighters. So their main goal was to fight Assad and to prevent a unified Syria. And the goal for SDF, the ultimate goal, is that to give them a sovereign country in north of Syria. So what happened now, there's no Bashar al-Assad. So their card is now not that important. I don't know if Trump agreed to to throw this card so Turkey can do whatever it wants there. Maybe that's maybe the case. But also, if you follow the Hebrew media and the Israeli politicians, you will see that they preferred the Kurds over the Sharia government. So Israel, they want the Kurdish party, which is the SDF, to rule in Syria and to have the strongest weapons and stuff, because they already have. And for instance, now the Syrian army was fully destroyed, I think, within 72 hours after Bashar al-Assad left Syria. But the SDF, nobody touched them, and they have new equipment, and they were trained by the United States since 11 years. So it's very complicated. If the Syrian army wants to fight the Kurdish people there, I think they will be humiliated. They don't have the capability or the equipment to do it, and they have to try diplomacy. But as Sweden said, first Erdogan, he talks too much, which makes diplomacy very difficult. And we know who are the Syrian armed forces now are. They are bunch of people that used to behead and to kill innocent people. So I think the situation is very difficult. I can't see a solution for this because, as I said, I think if the United States put its hand there, still there's Israel that will defend the SDF, which is the Democratic
Syrian Democratic
Syrian
Forces.
Democratic Forces, and I don't. And we know all that for Erdogan, for Turkey, the most crucial thing that like shakes their internal politics is the Kurdish issue because the Kurdish people they are from Syria, Iraq, and Turkey, and now they have some help me
Autonomy.
here, Stefan. Autonomy in northern Iraq, and now the president of Iraq should be Kurdish, and they are trying to do so in Syria. And if it was established in Syria, this will promote the Kurdish people in Turkey to make their own country, which this for Erdogan and for many Turkish people, this is very dangerous.
I mean, it also comes because one of the fallouts, or one of the what happened after the fall of Assad, was the disarmament of the PKK, of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, and the SDF. This is where it gets complicated, because then you are dealing with like a million different acronyms. But the SDF, it's essentially it's soldiers from the People Protections Unit, which is very closely allied to the PKK. So Turkey has been very clear that they will not allow armed Kurdish presence on their borders. They want Shara to control all of Syria. They want the Kurds to unify. Thomas Barak, a few weeks ago, he fired a bunch of advisors that were dealing with the Kurdish file and replaced them with, with other officials that are more aligned with the central government, the head chopper in chief, Shara. I feel like we're headed to a confrontation. I mean, it has to be. How else will they deal with the Kurds?
For instance, that's also not to forget that the Kurdish region, during even the civil war or the imposed war on Syria, it was like calm since years. I think the Kurdish people are already like, they now know how to live day by day, even if they don't achieve their goal. They have their roots, they have the things that they produce, the oil that they smuggle, and they are living. I think for them, they are living better what the people in Damascus are living. And their standard of life, that's what I mean, is better than that in Damascus. So unless Damascus launches an attack, I don't think the SDF will do anything.
What do you want to add, Mohammed?
I think that, yes, I agree that at the end of the road, the most reliable scenario would be fragmentation, or not fragmentation, but many internal wars inside of Syria, because what Al-Shara asks is something that all the different factions can't accept, because he's asking that he rules a country with an army that is formed of terrorist people that only kills others. So no one can accept it. And also at the same time, Turkey can't accept what the Kurds are asking, to be an independent part of the state. So also this can't happen. So when you have this much division, then yes, the most probable scenario would be reaching a point of conflict. But and I think all the parties, the Kurds are ready for this conflict. Ahmed al-Shara is ready for this conflict. Turkey is ready and is pushing for this conflict. But it's always the US and Israel. When these two powers are ready for the conflict, then I think we will have it. And to a certain limit, I think Israel is ready for it, because it drives fragmentation of Israel. So it wants to have many internal wars. But what's not, or what's forbidding it till now, is the US. I think it's mainly the US, because I don't think that now is the time for many internal conflicts inside of Syria. Now it's the time to concentrate on other places and to keep Syria away from problems.
Yeah, I mean, they want to make Syria, I guess, some sort of economic miracle, right? With all of the Gulf money and the World Bank and the IMF, they need to at least portray stability, even if. Although we know that a certain, like Western companies don't mind working with ISIS, as was the case with Lafarge, the French cement company. I think as far as the facade, it's maintained. Everything else can be happening behind the curtain. There's another very interesting story that I kind of feel went a bit under the radar, given everything else that's happened. And we have a feature about it. And this is about the deal that Russia and Iran signed during the, what is it called? The World Atom Week, Russia's World Atom Week and Atom Expo, in which Russia and Iran, just a few days before UN snapback sanctions were reinstated, they signed a 25 billion deal for Russia to build several nuclear power
Nuclear power
plants.
plant.
Yeah, nuclear power plants in Iran, expanding Iran's nuclear capabilities. What do you guys think? It really is the significance of this. I wanna get your guys' thoughts on this.
I just have one point is that the US sanctioned, I think, most of the globe or tens of countries around the world. And if these sanctioned countries cooperate with each other, then they will be on the good side, on the safe side, because there are many sanctioned countries today.
One
So I
third of the
think,
global population. One third of the global
yeah, is
population.
sanctioned. So if this one third cooperate with each other, so they will overcome sanctions very easily, and that's what's happening. I think Russia cooperating with Iran is a result of the two countries being under sanctions. I think Russia is the highest got the highest number of sanctions since after the Ukraine war. So what the US is doing, it's sanctioning everyone. It's like how it's using the military. It's fighting everyone militarily. It's fighting everyone economically, and it's giving every other country a reason to cooperate with the enemies of the US. And the Russian-Iranian cooperation is a result of American policies around the world.
True, true. What do you make of it, Karim?
Yeah, this also tells us that the enemies that the United States is creating is putting more countries to be allies like Russia and Iran. Yani for instance, Iran, we know the nuclear power, the nuclear deal and the danger and the atomic bomb and blah blah blah, and till now, and the sanctions and everything that happened in that 12-day war until now, Iran is not like getting anything, not anything. It's not getting the thing from their nuclear research and nuclear reactors as people think or portray. And for instance, now Iran only generates 1% of its electricity from nuclear reactors, and that's what they want to change. Here, where Russia stepped up and they agreed to build 4 nuclear power plants in south of Iran in Sirik, as shown in the map, and they want these power plants to at least provide more than 10%, from 10 to 11% power to Iran. And we know Iran, they have gas and oil. So for their economy, it's better for them to do so they can benefit from selling oil and gas. And of course, in the research is very important. Nuclear research is very important in medicine and in many other stuff. So it's as Esteban said, this happened days before the snapback. Yes, snapback, and the Europeans reinstated sanctions on Iran, and this shows that when you sanctions Iran and Russia, they are forced to work together, because previously when they sanctioned Iran before the war between Ukraine and Russia. Russia adhered and Russia halted every cooperation with Iran. But now, Russia and China, now they don't care. Whatever the Europeans want to do, you can do it alone, and we can do it alone.
They
so
said
now,
they specifically
yes,
said that the snapback sanctions are illegal and they will not adhere to them.
yeah,
And you're right, Karim. This is
100%.
the first time they do that.
Yeah, 10 years ago, they adhered to it. This is what, when we talk about multipolarity, we're still, for me, we're still in early steps, but the policy of the United States and of the West are accelerating the world to be multipolarity. And if things goes as they are, of course, the leaders of the new multipolar world will be Russia, Iran will be part of it, China, and of course, unfortunately, the United States will still be a superpower. But of course, we're seeing countries such as UK, France, and Germany. They have no say in any policy. Yeah, they still have like small countries that they influence, but they don't influence other countries as they used to be. And if people go back and remember that 100 years ago, the United Kingdom was occupying like 20, 30 countries. Now they barely have influence in Ireland, which is on their borders. So that's why this is very significant. And I recommend people to read this article. There's charts and there's information that usually you don't see it elsewhere.
There's also, and it's very interesting, this topic about the march towards multipolarity, because, for example, the ASEAN group of nations, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, they continue very quietly, very steady towards de-dollarization, towards securing trade deals that can overcome tariffs. Because tariffs are sanctions. Tariffs are sanctions just in a different dress. They are, an economic, a coercive measure to punish, to blackmail, to make sure, that Donald Trump gets his way. So you have ASEAN nations, you have, of course, the BRICS, you have the SEO. We talked about this, at length in previous episodes. And also, I feel like, and just to tie it all together, right, to the beginning of the episode when we're talking about the flotilla and the protests and everything, you have someone like Colombian President Gustavo Petro, who is, he's putting Arab leaders to shame, like day in and day out, the way that he has taken the stance in opposition to Israel. Like yesterday, when the flotilla got aborted, he immediately ordered that all of the diplomatic corps from Israel be expelled from the country, the free trade agreement. He declared it void and null. He's having, back and forth with the U.S. as well. When he was in the U.S., he called on U.S. soldiers to not listen to Donald Trump. He was the only leader to step up at the UN and say we need to present a Uniting for Peace resolution that will form a global army of humanity to go and stop the genocide. So I feel like he's the first. He's the first, and others will follow. I don't think, I see people in the chat sometimes asking, what are Russia, what are China doing? Russia and China are not going to take these steps. They're not going to be the ones that, they might, like, when it's safe, and they can be like, oh no, we were with them all the time. But it's going to take leaders like Petro or like, like Ramaphosa in South Africa too has taken, like he's the one that took Israel to the ICJ. Or you have the leaders like, the Yemeni leadership that are the government of Yemen. They are the government of Yemen, who are acting again to stop. They put sanctions on a bunch of U.S. Oil majors this week. They sanctioned ExxonMobil, they sanctioned Chevron. What does that mean? It means we will not allow you to pass through the Bab el-Mandab Strait to the Red Sea. So there is movement. And I feel like all of these things are starting to come together. The whole push towards multipolarity and the anger that the genocide in Gaza is causing, they're coming together. And at some point, like Mohammed said a few minutes ago, the empire is just too overstretched. And this pressure is going to cause it to snap. Well, I think with that, guys, unless you want to add something else.
No, I just wanted to add something regarding.
Go ahead.
Yeah, for instance, this photo was taken 5 days ago. This is the foreign minister of UAE, which is literally United Arab Emirates. So, and this is Netanyahu. Look how happy they are. So they don't have the decency at least to tell him, okay, I can talk to you. Okay, master, I can do whatever you want, but let us not take a picture. For our sanity at least. So when I wanted to put this picture because when you said about Russia and China, I don't want to talk about any specific country, but for instance, I usually what I think of and what usually I debate here also in the office. For instance, I say why Russia and China and any other country, why do you want them to do anything for Palestine if Arabs are not doing anything for Palestine? if we don't lobby. It's really literally very easy. And if you want Russia to do anything, Russia is somehow a superpower. You have to show Russia, for instance, there's 22 countries. Okay, we will not deal with you if you want to deal with Israel. Here, if Russia say no, okay, we can say Russia is Zionist, for instance. But I don't think Russia will say no. And same applies to China. You have 22 Arab countries, you have 1.7 billion Muslims. Did they do anything? Did they unite? Did they take any measures to pressure such countries to stop their operations or their cooperation with Israel? No, they did exactly the opposite. And this pictures says a lot. For instance, the UAE, they don't care. Bahrain don't care. Till now, there's many Israelis that go to Egypt for tourism, and Egypt they give them like a policeman to make them safe during their journey and this stuff, and the same also applies in Jordan. So if these countries don't want to do anything, we should not, I think, ask other countries why you're not doing anything. But of course, thanks to South America, thanks to Cuba, Colombia, Iran, and many countries that are trying to do something. But if something happened to your family, and you're, for instance, the father or the brother, if you don't do anything, don't blame others.
Very well put.
I just have one last comment.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Previously, it was an Arab-Israeli conflict. So you either stand with the Arabs or you stand with the Israelis. So at that time, we used to blame the Arabs that don't stand in the right direction in the Arab-Israeli conflict. But as time passed, I think we passed a long time since it is an Arab-Israeli conflict. Now it is a conflict between humanity and inhumanity. It's a conflict between right and wrong. Mm-hmm. So, but when it is a conflict between humanity and inhumanity, your identity doesn't mean anything. If you're an Arab or not an Arab, doesn't mean. It doesn't reflect on this. So when the UAE leaders stand with Israel, it's not about the Arab, because we passed the Arab-Israeli conflict. It's about leaders standing in the class of inhumanity. And when Cuba stands against Israel, it's about Cuban leaders standing in the class of humanity. So I think today the division is much more clear. Here is right, here is wrong, here's humanity, here's inhumanity. And every person has to decide where he stands.
Very well put. Very well put. I wouldn't add anything to that. Just very quickly, I do want to thank David Sling Don't Work. What a great name. For their super chat. Great discussion. He says, thank you so much. Make sure to tell everyone, tell your friends, tell your family. They can check out The Cradle. Make sure to leave a like before you leave. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't, to check out our memberships, to check out our Patreon. Support independent journalism. We need your support. And check out Cradle merch as well, where you can get some very cool stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next Monday. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Karim. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.